Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, September 28, 2021 Public Works Committee meeting. We will start out with roll call and determination of quorum.
Evans. Here. Stroman.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Armstrong.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you very much. And now is time for adoption of the agenda. Have a motion to adopt the agenda by Mr. Jones and a second by Mr. Stroman. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And I have been informed that we don't have to do a roll call vote today. So if anybody's out there watching, that's the reason we're doing that. Now is time for general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue, not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I don't have any general public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comment? If not, I will close that and we will move on to consent items 1 through 14. But at this time, I will give staff the ability to speak on any or all items that they want to.
I guess I'll poll the committee members once again. If you'd like to, I can certainly go through, give a very brief description on every item. That's what we did last time. I think it worked well. What's the desire of the committee?
As long as the committee is fine with that, the chair is.
Yep. Okay, very good. Let me get going here. Item 2 is a final change order for our annual chip sealing project. Item 3 is a final change order for a small water job that we had over in the West Boulevard area. Item 4, we are in the middle of restudying or remapping, if you will, the Lime Creek area over on the west part of town. This is for additional work that's necessary based on FEMA comments that we get back. We're certainly at the mercy of FEMA reviewers anytime we make a submittal to them, so this is quite common, not unique to Rapid City, but common throughout the country. Item number 6, the professional service agreement to provide cathodic protection for pressure reducing valve on Enchantment Road. This contract and ultimate work out of it will ensure that the underground infrastructure we have at this facility will last the 75-year design life that we expect out of our underground infrastructure these days. Item number 7, this is the big grant. We talked about this. We had a gentleman from Bros Engineering that gave a report to the full council this summer. We talked about Chapel Lane Bridge, but this is just another step in the process for us to get a consultant hired and start doing the preliminary engineering on Chapel Lane Bridge. I know one of the concerns raised at the meeting this summer was how quickly we're going to get to it and how it would impact traffic. So certainly as part of the preliminary engineering effort, access in and out of Chapel Valley area is paramount, and that will be considered. So just want to assure you that that's all being addressed as part of this request. Item 8 is a covenant agreement. This is what we would call a non-conforming service situation, where we've got people's service lines are crossing adjoining properties. That is problematic. In this instance, we were able to work something out with the property owners. There's easements involved, and then the covenant agreement. So there are no surprises in the future when these properties transfer and if there's a service line issue with the properties. Item number 9 is reconstruction of a block of, actually it's more than a block, it's closer to 2 blocks of St. Cloud Street over in the West Boulevard area. The primary driver behind this is the sewer utility. In fact, we have a bunch of non-conforming sewer services, so that's what this project will will help solve, and then in addition to that, the roadway will be replaced. So this kind of goes into our conversation that we'll be having on item 16. So items 10 and 11, I believe, I'm sorry, item 10 is a request from TUI Design Group, time extension. Staff supports this. This is a rule that was written into our, I believe, subdivision ordinance as far as timelines are concerned. So certainly they need more time. We certainly approve of the request. Items 11 and 12 are sidewalk variances. Once again, staff recommends approval of these two items. I believe in both instances there are not any sidewalks anywhere near this proposed development or either proposed development. Item 13 is a request to purchase a spare closed-circuit television. It's the device we use to to camera our sewer mains. We do have a unit. It has been known to break down from time to time, and we certainly need to have redundancy there to be able to respond to emergencies, if there's blockage, or also to help inspect new infrastructure as well. So, and then the last item is a renewal of a contract. This is for the snow removal for parking lots that the city owns, primarily in the downtown area. I believe it also includes the parking ramp. So this is just a renewal of the existing contract that we have. I'll stand by for any questions on items 1 through 14.
And we have Mr. Jones that has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On item number 14, those businesses there, do they bid for those opportunities to plow, or are they hired by us, or what process is used?
Yeah, there was a bid process that occurred, and I don't know the timing right off the top of my head, but in the last year or 3, I'm guessing. So it was competitively bid, and then as part of that contract, there was a clause to renew. Typically, that works certainly in our favor to renew a bid price from prior years. As we know, costs continue to go up, and so this helps hold the line on costs.
And have we had satisfactory service from these folks?
We do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stroman has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Dale, on number 6, the Cathodic Protection, is that like a retro job there, or was that something that was done during the initial installation, or is this something that's we have to dig up and redo?
I believe this is a retro. You know, the term cathodic protection has been around for quite a long time. However, the city of Rapid City, as well as most other, in fact, all communities throughout the country, haven't had a good handle on what corrosion does underground. Certainly the soils in Rapid City are highly variable. So this is an opportunity for us that we believe in this area. We know that the soils are corrosive, and then the criticality of this particular facility, or underground facility, certainly needs to be protected.
Okay. And then I have a question on number 9.
Sure.
This is the St. Cloud Street reconstruction from West Boulevard to 9th Street, and I think you indicated that's between 1 to 2 blocks in length.
Yeah, correct. It's in excess of a block, but less than 2 blocks. So the total amount of work is in that less than 1,000-foot range, I'm guessing.
Okay, is there anything extraordinary about that, or is that a pretty standard cost for doing a block and a half of $500,000?
Well, it's a standard cost. We aren't upgrading the water. Once again, I said this is a utility-driven project. However, we will have to replace the paving on the street. And in this instance, it's about an even split between sewer funding and street funding. So $275,000 estimated cost as far as the street work is concerned, and then about another $250,000 worth of sewer work.
Okay. And I guess one of the reasons I'm interested in that is, as you mentioned, we'd be going on to number 16, which was a discussion about a residential street plan, and I think this kind of illustrates the expense that, we need to up our game as a council if we're going to get some money to fix these streets, money in place for that, because half $500,000 or $250,000 for a block and a half is pretty pricey. So I think that's just kind of a word to my colleagues on the council, is that we need to get creative about funding some of these street repairs, because it's not cheap. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, and if we have no more questions, we will go on to consent items. I will open public comment. I don't believe we have any. I don't think anybody from the audience has any public comment. If you do, step up, and if not, I will close public comment, and we will move on to remove any items from the consent calendar. Does anyone on the dais have anything they want to remove for any more discussion? Or Laura, do you have anything you would like to remove?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, if not, I'll look for a motion. We have a motion to approve from Councilman Evans, a second from Councilman Stroman. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And we will move on to non-consent items. Items 15 and 16, I will open public comment again. If we have anybody from the audience that would like to speak, we don't, so I will close public comment. And we will move on to item 15, a request to add 7 streetlights to existing poles on South Valley Road. And Councilman Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So this is a project that I've been working on for some time with some of the neighbors out there in that area, and we have now arrived at the spot where it is on the agenda. I've been emailing the members of Public Works, Mr. Tech and others, my communication with West River Electric as to what the project will look like. I put hard copies in front of all of you today, just in case you haven't seen the most recent one. There are 7 existing poles on South Valley Road that we would like to see the Cobra light head put on. It's an annual cost of $1,226.40, as I was originally told by their staff back in July when we first started working on this, but this is confirmation from West River Electric, and they're ready to go. They would just need approval from the council, and so I believe I've provided all the information that we need. But if there are questions from the council or anybody more about this project, I would be happy to answer them. This whole thing started with the development of the Johnson Ranch project and issues originally with speeding on South Valley Road, and we've had many meetings, many discussions about what we can do for the neighbors, for the residents of that area, from where the Johnson Road or Johnson Ranch project ends and then going to the south. And that road has a tremendous history of badness. It's a bad road. It's a narrow road. There's the residents there are concerned about speeding. They're concerned about visibility. They're concerned about a lot of things. And so this idea of putting in the street lights is supported by the residents out there. I've just kind of been carrying it forward for them. They would like this done to help raise the level of safety for their foot traffic, for bicycles, for driving, etc. out there. And so I am looking for and asking that this group would recommend it for us to take it to the city council at the next meeting. And I'm open for questions.
Do we have any questions from the dais, or Laura, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Thank you very much, and do you mind if I ask you a question or two, Pat?
No, go right ahead.
Thank you. I'm fully in support of this. I think it's a great investment for $1,200 a year for the safety that this will probably provide the people in that area. My question is, so the poles I imagine are all owned by West River.
Correct.
Okay. So probably a question to staff now. Does West River have to have any kind of permit or anything to put on a light on a pole that they own because of the fact that the city is going to be taking over the responsibility of this, at least paying for the electrical in the future.
Well, one of the items at hand and why it's in front of you is this section of road is not a city road. It's a county road. But as far as the lights are concerned, West River Electric, no, they won't need any permits from any entity to put the lights on them. They already have the pole in place. They're allowed in that right of way. And as long as someone's paying the bill, they're going to be fine with that. So there aren't any other administrative hurdles that I'm aware of, other than if the council requests it, we have to do a formal request to West River Electric, and we have a process in place for that, but that's a standard process.
And do you have to do some kind of an agreement with the county because it's not?
No, I don't believe the county will require anything. Once again, the poles are permitted to be there already, and the addition of the lights, as far as I know, aren't any concern to the county, so.
So when we bring this forward, we'll have to bring it forward with that you're going to be applying for that with West River?
I think it's just appropriate, yeah, that if the council is inclined to approve this, 7 lights installed on South Valley Drive, and have the mayor and Public Works Director fill out the necessary paperwork with West River Electric.
And is that something we can get changed and bring forward to the next council meeting, do you know, or
I think
the wording of that?
You can just make your motion to that, and if you so choose today, and
I'm sure that Mr. Jones will be happy to make that in his motion. So that's all the questions that I have right at the moment. Thank you. I'm looking for a motion on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I would make a motion that we direct the mayor and public works director to prepare the necessary documents to have the 7 lights installed on South Valley Road.
And if I can get a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilman Jones and a second from Councilman Stroman to bring this forward to the council on Monday night. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Well, kind of a motion, a discussion motion. So item 16, discussion about creating a residential street plan, and I will open the floor to whoever wants to speak on this first. Unless nobody wants to speak on it. Mr. Stroman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reiterate what I said before, is that now that we've seemed to have a little bit of momentum on this street repair issue, I don't want to lose that, and I want to have a discussion with, we'll have a discussion at Public Works today, and we'll have one at CIP, and we'll try to come up with something that we can present in the form of a motion to get some stable funding authority for the street projects that we need to do. So I think if we are able to have a fund with a substantial amount of money in it, that we will be able to, the contractors then will be able to plan accordingly, and they won't have to wait for just like a one-time shot of funds and then scramble and try to get their workers together, but we'll have an opportunity to actually have a steady plan going forward. And so not only can the city make its preparations, but also the contractors can, and hopefully we can start down that road, no pun intended, of fixing our streets.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, you have the floor.
Yeah, and talking with Mr. Lehman last week about this, we feel that we've got to figure out a way to make the residential street plan sort of resistant to change by future members of the council and/or the whims of any other committees that come along, because it seems that some items get pushed back year after year after year after year because something always becomes a higher priority. So some sort of division between the residential streets, the arterial streets, has got to be accomplished so that that doesn't keep happening. And we had spoken about the possibility of a committee that might investigate the revisions to our plan and how we would want to formulate a plan using citizen input and members of the council and members of our staff, anybody who feels that they've got a good idea. So I agree with Mr. Stromel. We've got to figure out a way to make it operable, looking ahead rather than always being subject to whim or whimsy or changes depending on the way the wind is blowing. So we'll be formulating probably some committee, and Lance and I are going to be working on that soon. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tech. You have the floor now. I can tell you're chomping at the bit.
All right, Jim finally got me. I was chomping so loudly I threw the mic off. I would like to give this committee an overview of the strategies that we do employ for overall street repair, reconstruction in the city of Rapid City. So if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I don't have prepared marks, but I could talk about this all day because that's what we do. I guess I'll give you a little background. I came to the city in 2008, and when I came to the city, actually I worked for another road agency prior to that, and we had a very robust pavement management strategy, if you will. So I brought a lot of that with me to the city of Rapid City. Prior to 2008, there was not very clear plans to evaluate our pavements, take appropriate measures to address deficiencies, so on and so forth. So I'll start by saying our practice that we use is a three-pronged approach. We have pavement preservation. That is the biggest bang for our buck. That is, if we have a good pavement, we should be doing a treatment to it every decade or so, going in, fixing the small problems, keeping that pavement good so it lasts much, much longer. That is the most cost-effective thing we can do to our pavements. The second strategy that we implement is called what we call rehabilitation. So that is a project where, well, the pavement's failed and it's too far gone to be able to do really anything. If you put a chip seal on it, you're wasting your time. You're throwing money away. So those are the mills and overlays, what we call inlays, and those are what we primarily use on residential streets, and we do that every year throughout town. And then obviously our final thing, which is the most expensive thing, which goes back to item 6 today that Alderman Stroman pulled off, is full reconstruction. That is by and far the most expensive thing that we can do. You know, $500,000 a block or a block and a half, that's quite expensive. To give you some other numbers, we can do for that $500,000, we could do probably close to 10 or 12 blocks of rehabilitation. And then as far as our pavement preservation is concerned, that ends up being just a few $1,000s a block. So that's why we implement those strategies, trying to keep our pavements in good shape. There's an exhibit that I want to show you that may surprise you. People talk about how bad the streets are in Rapid City. Our streets are actually pretty good compared to a lot of communities. We are quite fortunate, and I've said this before, that with the funding that we do have through the CIP, we are at a huge advantage to most other communities that don't have a similar funding mechanism for street improvements. I got a call from the city of Bismarck here, it's been a couple of years ago now, from their Public Works Department saying, how do you folks do residential street work? The only mechanism we have in place in Bismarck are assessments. So if your street's bad, we don't have a sales tax fund, we don't have any other city fund that we can use to reconstruct or repave that street. We have to assess those property owners for the cost of that. And obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but apparently their state law versus, regarding assessments is similar to South Dakota's, where those people can vote on it. That's not a thing that the city can just go in and do. The citizens that are affected by it can vote on it. And the problem they're having is obviously nobody wants to pay for that. So they can't fix any residential streets in the city of Bismarck is the message that I was told here a few years ago. So City of Rapid City, we're doing quite well. We're going to keep going. We are not stopping. We are not diverting funds from residential streets to arterial streets. It's important that we keep our good streets good. And this exhibit that I want to show you, this was built in AutoCAD, so it's kind of difficult to read, but these are all of the streets that have either been rehabbed or reconstructed in the city of Rapid City since 2009. So as you can see, that's a lot of streets. We've covered a lot of ground. We still have a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to continue to do that. Certainly, we are fiscally constrained, so a big part of the question is, where do we find additional funding opportunities in expanding our street maintenance and street rehabilitation programs, if you will? So people don't like to talk about the assessment process. There are cities throughout South Dakota that do have a maintenance assessment, front footage assessment, that everyone in the city gets assessed that annually, and that's what those cities use to help their streets. That's another funding strategy that the city of Rapid City could implement. I don't have an idea of what the price tag would be on that. I could get with the finance director if you're interested in that and try to pencil out a number, what that revenue source could be. But that's just, Council President Lehman asked us for some recommendations for funding. That's one recommendation. And then certainly any other funding sources that we could get, or revenue sources rather, would be much appreciated by everyone in the community to continue the work that we've done and keep it going. I'll stand for any questions on that item.
Thank you very much. Councilman Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that we have to make sure we do as we work on a street plan is make sure that we have long-term funding in place to go with it. We can't just have a street plan without long-term funding. We may want to consider, as we look at how we take that precious second penny sales tax, and part of that, or the percentage of that, goes towards the CIP, percentage of that goes to vision, and a small part of it goes somewhere else that I don't know. But we may want to consider the ratio of that and how that's split out. We may be able to find ways through that process to create more money for streets ongoing, perpetually, rather than, like Councilman Stroman said, not knowing where we're at financially and just throwing projects out there. So that discussion may need to be part of this, to find, there's not going to be a new pot of money, but if we are wise with how we divvy up what we have now, we may be able to do more. Something for us to think about down the road. Thank you.
Councilman Stroman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And I agree with Councilman Jones that is the second cent of the sales tax would be a place where we could look at reallocating some funds. I just have one more question for Dale, if I may. Dale, you know, sometimes we or our constituents will come out and say, oh, that street looks terrible, why don't they fix it tomorrow? And I know that you and your department have worked tirelessly on coming up with a 5-year plan, which, would you explain a little bit about why we just don't, okay, this looks like a bad street, let's get somebody out there tomorrow and fix it? I'd appreciate a little
Well, sure.
enlightenment. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one thing we discuss every day. And funding, it all goes back to the funding. We are fiscally constrained. We have to develop a plan and stick to it. If we start bailing out and adding, subtracting projects, it kills the funding. And especially if there are any utilities involved, because that funding has to come along with it. So it's a huge, it's like juggling 4 balls at once and trying to keep them all afloat. It's very difficult to do. So stability is very important. And you already mentioned it in your remarks too, that having a 5-year plan that our local contracting community can look at, refer to, we meet with them annually on it to show them what's coming up. It helps them plan their work and plan their business around that as well. So that stability is very important. You know, so changing things midstream, it always costs you more to do that. If it's in a plan, it's easier to work the plan and stick with it.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak? And if I could just have a minute, and I want to thank you, Dale, for coming and explaining quite a bit of this to us. But one other thing that I think maybe we should touch on is, even if we had unlimited funds right now, there's only a limited amount of contractors in Rapid City that can do that. And I know that we've pushed up in different years to where we've about maximized the amount of contractors we can get. I mean, we have trouble at times bidding out some of these projects because everybody's so busy, and I see that only increasing over the next multiple years because of everything that's happening in Rapid City and the growth. So if you could kind of maybe touch on that just a little bit.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You know, the rapid growth that we're expected to see in Rapid City due to what's going on out at Ellsworth is, it's certainly a blessing, but it's also difficult. You know, there's talk that out at Ellsworth alone, there's going to be $1 billion worth of work for contractors to do out there. Certainly, we expect some of the larger national firms, companies to come in and do that, but there will be local components to that work. So, you know, competition is going to only increase. You know, when we bid a project, we're communicating with the contractors. We want to make sure we get a bid and that it's competitive. There have been a lot of cases. One was, I can't remember here, where we had to rebid it twice. So it was a boiler project out at Water Rec. We bid the project twice, didn't get any bids, and that's because everyone's too busy. So certainly stability in our 5-year plans, so and engagement early, which we do in the fall and then again in the spring with our local contractors through the AGC, is here's our plan. Take a look at it. We hope that this work fits you nicely, and make them aware of that work well ahead of when we're going to bid it, so they know what's coming and that they can count on that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I look forward to the ongoing discussion with this and hopefully setting up a committee on it. So a lot of this discussion can not necessarily be done on the dais or behind closed doors, but so we can get more in depth on this discussion and take more time to do it. I think it's something that's needed to come for a long time. I really appreciate some of the people that have brought this forward. And I think that there's a way to do it, but there's got to be a right way to do it. You can't just jump into something like this and expect to work it out overnight. So I think it's going to take a time to get everything figured out. I totally agree. I would love to see more stability in that 5-year plan, but as I'm sure Dale would agree, there are times projects come up that are that need to be done so badly it does affect that 5-year plan. So, you know, one of the things, and a big issue not only in Rapid City but all around the country, is the aging underground infrastructure, and that's where these huge costs come in. So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes, and I look forward to it. Thank you. If we have no more discussion, I would like to have I guess we're just going to okay the discussion on this item for now. I don't think we're going to bring anything forward to the council at the moment. I think that the council president and Mr. Evans are discussing this to hopefully set up a committee in the very near future. So if I could just have a motion on the discussion, and we'll move forward. So,
Move to acknowledge.
got a motion to acknowledge the discussion from Councilman, boy, my mind's not working today, Stroman, and a second by Councilman Jones. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we are going, got a motion to adjourn, and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.